Thank you for being here. So we are talking about the future of gaming, and I think it's safe to say games will be expanding into several places, into spaces like private space, public space, social space, new symbolic spaces. And I want to use our time to talk about several of these spaces. There are words like virtual reality, augmented reality, serious gaming, gamification. And what do you think about these words? Maybe we
Wow. How much time do you have?
There, 12 minutes and 17 seconds.
Okay, I'll talk fast. Well, we're expanding because the people who play games are expanding. So I was probably the beginning of a generation that had games in my home. And as I age, which happens, and it's happening quickly, but as I age, I continue to play games. And we're seeing the band of people in the audience. So now for the first time, we've got people who grew up playing games with their children and bringing them into the market. So we view the world as interactive and look at these different opportunities. So I was playing 8-bit games on a screen, and now, like you're talking about, being able to go into virtual and augmented and all these different spaces with the same structure in what's now a mature market.
Will you go to virtual reality with games? Because what we see actually are more digital experiences, not really games, because it's so difficult to build larger experiences in virtual reality. Is this the future of gaming?
I think the future of gaming is everywhere. So I'll get back to virtual reality, but when I look at a game, we're taking the roles. The only thing a game is data management. So when we define a game, we say that a game is a goal achievable within a rule set with real-time feedback. That's a game. And if I use that definition, then eBay is a game, and Tinder is a game, and
Facebook and
Amazon
Twitter
is a game, and Facebook, these are all games. You've got a goal, there's a rule set for how you behave, and you get feedback of whether you're successful. So now, when we take that overlay, there's a place for it in console. Console means PlayStation and Xbox. There's a place for it on your mobile device. Obviously, 650 million people play Pokemon Go. And there's a place for it in VR. And what we've seen with every form of media, whether we're talking about the introduction of a movie screen or the introduction of television after radio, the first reaction is the other ones will contract. And then the reality is it always expands the medium. So in virtual reality, we will have, it's a new platform, we will have some things that fit that definition of the goal achievable within a rule set, where people interact and try to achieve something. I don't think that we've defined it yet, and it's a unique platform, it's a unique medium, and we have to define what those rules are, and that takes time. But of course, it'll be there, and it'll expand what we believe right now is something that you sit down and play.
Marshall McLuhan said once that the medium is the message, so it's independent of what you play or what you look at the television screen, the fact that you look at a screen. What might be the message of augmented reality games or mobile games?
The message of augmented reality games is the opportunity to enhance the world. So in virtual reality, we're removing ourselves from the world and moving into a completely new world. In augmented reality, we're adding things. And it could be something as simple as my looking at you, seeing your face, and it tells me your name in case I forget. Or it could tell me your background. Or I have an example I used in a talk where there's this weird kind of spider, and the information comes up to tell me what it is. That's augmenting. Or a Pokemon character can pop up here. So I'm in this world, and I'm enhancing it in a way that pleases me. I think that the message from the medium is that we can enhance our world. Virtual reality, again, is something that's different than what we have, and we have to build an entirely new world, and we have to have a language so that the creator of the world can communicate with the end user. In film, if I film the outside of this building, and then I show us talking, everybody in this room will understand that we're inside the building they just saw the outside of. That didn't come down from the Greeks 3,000 years ago in plays, and it didn't come from God. That was something that over the course of the first 20 years of filmmaking, and a lot's happened in the next 80, was defined as a grammar. This is where we're starting right now in VR. So we have to start defining a grammar in a way to communicate that's universal across the experiences.
it doesn't go way before because so many people are getting VR sick. I personally, I can't stand VR longer than 5 to 10 minutes. I got all the glasses,
Right.
several for my students, but I personally cannot even enjoy their games they're creating
Right.
because it's not
And this is one of the
familiar.
elements to be learned. I mean, one of the things that developers learn with VR is there are certain ways that you can ask a player to move. And there's certain ways that you can move an environment. And it has to do with moving forward, moving backward, the speed that you move, and all of these things are ways to make sure. And for me, if a platform is defined by this game won't make you vomit, it's not really a great platform.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to have a different threshold for success. Then you can hold your lunch.
But when we look at other applications, it's this talk about serious games because we are making these computer game studies, the curriculum, and I often get asked what kind of games are we making? Are we just producing for entertainment purpose or are there other purposes?
Right.
So what's our relation to real world systems? What do you think about the future of serious gaming? I personally don't like the title because games and serious games are not necessarily to be
Well, that's
fun.
like if you walked up to a child and said, do you want candy or do you want medicine? You have
chocolate,
your choice.
It's chocolate-coated broccoli.
Exactly. No, and it's not even that. A good game is a good game, and I can learn history playing Civilization, and that's not a serious game. The other thing that I can do is if I'm an executive at a company, I know less about how to advance from director to vice president level and where I stand than a person in 3rd grade knows about how to achieve an A in a class. So like I said, goal, feedback. We're missing real-time feedback in the real world. Now we have big data. We have access to data we've never had before. So we can use that data, not gamify. Gamify is a horrible word that should go to the place of serious games. But we can use that data to give somebody feedback to know where they stand in the world. So now, in terms of a serious game, it's not a game, but if I have something in my job that tells me that if I learn these skills, I achieve my bonus, and I advance a level, and then I have a way where there's something I can look at every day that tells me how close I am to achieving that and where I'm failing. Not badges aren't new, the Boy Scouts made those. But now I can look at that, it's a game by definition, but it's not a game it gives me the same pleasure, I get the endorphin pop from looking at this thing, pulling a slot machine or knowing that I'm closer to vice president, but it's not walking in and saying, okay, welcome to your first day at IBM, now you're playing the Be Successful at IBM game. So I do think it becomes pervasive, and I also think that it lends itself to people who grow up playing games. They feel comfortable and want that feedback.
So I think that these kind of games can help the education system replace the worst enemy it has to discourage children. It's killing curiosity and courage. That's grading.
I was going to say, if it's killing children, you do it differently in Germany than we do.
Okay.
We try not to do that.
You don't grade children?
We don't kill the children.
You don't kill, but it's killing curiosity.
So, no, you're absolutely right. And the reason that we have the tools that we have that we've been using in schools for hundreds of years that our great-grandparents use is, and it goes back to that same point that I was making, we didn't have access to real-time data. 100 years ago, even 10 years ago, if a child wrote something in a notebook or wrote an answer, we didn't know what it was until they turned it in and the teacher went home and looked at the test. Now, we know what the question is. So now what happens? Now, I make a math test for 27 kids. 27 kids are all different levels of math. Every one of them has a different way to answer the questions and has different ones that get correct in different disciplines, right? I hand out the test and I get it back. You're good, you're bad, you're good, you're bad. Now, what if I had a test that was able to see that a child had 3 problems in the same discipline that they got wrong and 3 in this other one that got right? The test can change automatically to give them more of the ones where they're challenged. So this is real-time feedback. So we can use, that's a game.
Yes, you can transform the
We're using
classroom into
data,
a kind of game.
exactly. So we're using real-time data to be able to respond to their needs instead of this fixed system that we have of just.
And we don't have to grade children in good or bad pupils, only with maybe faster or slower pupils on a certain competence.
Well, yeah, but we can use the real-time data to understand exactly where they stand. Have they mastered this subject? Are they leaning towards only doing this when we want them to learn A and B, but they're only doing A, so now I know I have to focus more on B and get them going?
And we don't have to. Well, they can retry if they fail. I think games are constantly assessing your competence.
Exactly.
And if you fail, you just retry. This culture of failure that has been mentioned several times.
So it's
in games.
Real-time data management. That's all games are, is a data management system.
So that's why so many people are looking on progress bars, their life, even if they don't think they're playing a game, it's actually what they do. How much do I progress and how am I standing?
Exactly.
And maybe game design can take this and transform it into a vivid experience.
Well, I look at it the other way. I say we take game design and we give them access to the data and we have them figure out how to make people. What we do when we make design, in a game we create what's called a compulsion loop. When we're looking at these social games and things like this. What's the thing that makes you keep going back? Play Farmville, why do you keep buying seats? It's a compulsion loop. It's like a slot machine. So how do we take a game designer to create the compulsion loop to encourage a behavior that we like, whether it's achieving in your job, whether it's studying in school, or anything that's going to give you that reward you're looking for?
But there's one big issue that the industry still thinks they're producing entertainment products for 14-year-old boys. So how can we come up with more diversity in games and game design?
I don't agree with that. I think that there is a segment of the industry, just like in Hollywood. If I wanted to look at Hollywood, I can say based on the most successful movies in the box office, that we're only making movies for popcorn and superheroes in tights. But that's not the case. They're movies for every audience and every demographic. It's hard to get every single one of them made. In the game business, we've got the biggest games are made for adolescent male empowerment fantasies, absolutely. But there are games that address people with cancer. There are games, Monument Valley is a beautiful game, and it was rewarded with success, and another one came out. There are all kinds of games. My mother is playing Match 3 games. So there are games for everybody. There's just not a... There's not an inalienable right to get the budget to make the game that you want. It still has to make business sense. And the business sense for the $100 million games is at that blockbuster adolescent male empowerment fantasy. Because the people who are playing it, the average age of those players is 38 years old.
Yeah, 38. It's in the United States also.
Yeah.
We in Europe have 37, 5
Yeah,
years.
so we've got a lot of 38-year-old adolescents sitting in their
For every
underwear playing video
15-year-old,
games.
for every 15-year-old, there's one 55-year-old playing these games.
Yeah, that's me.
So we have 5 seconds left. Do you have any advice for the students present here or how to orient their career if they want to looking for games or game design?
Well, yeah, I've spent 25 years in the game business, and maybe you should rethink your desires if you're going to go be in the game business. No, ever since the beginning, whenever anybody asked about advice in games, the beauty of it, and now with the mobile platform, we've got that opportunity again, is if you want to be in the game business, just go ahead and do it. Build a game. Get started. We were talking about my very first client. They made something called the Journeyman Project in 1994, 1993. It was 8 people in college, and they rented a house together. They took the doors off of their hinges and used those as desks, and they used their own computers, and they went ahead and they made a game. And they put an ad in the back of a magazine, and they sold it by mail. And they became a successful company. Today, go ahead, build a game. You have access to tools for free. You have access to everything. Just get in, start doing, post it, and go.
Come to our game jams 2 times a semester, maybe. And if you want more from him, he'll have a lecture tomorrow at 9 o'clock at Geschwister-Schollplatz, H2. So we can talk more in deeply about games, game industry, and competences to achieve there.
All kinds of horror stories.
Yes. Thank you very much.